A senior Iranian official told Reuters that Tehran has sent a warning to countries hosting American military forces. The official said Iran would target U.S. bases in those countries if Washington attacks, a statement that transforms what has been described as an internal Iranian situation into a potential regional confrontation affecting multiple nations across the Middle East. The warning represents a significant escalation in the ongoing crisis, according to analysts. Countries that host American forces now face a difficult calculation, weighing their relationship with Washington against their proximity to Tehran and their vulnerability to potential Iranian retaliation. Reuters reports the warning was framed in blunt terms, according to the official. The message was delivered to multiple governments across the region, each now forced to consider implications that extend far beyond bilateral relationships with either power. The Iranian official specified which countries received the warning, according to Reuters: Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Turkey. These are among the most significant American partners in the region, hosting substantial American military presence and cooperating with Washington on regional security for decades. Now they find themselves caught between competing pressures, analysts observe. American expectations of continued partnership clash with Iranian warnings of potential consequences if that partnership enables attacks. The calculation is not simple for any of these governments, each with its own relationship with Tehran to consider. Saudi Arabia has sought to improve relations with Tehran in recent years, pursuing diplomatic channels that seemed unthinkable a decade ago. The UAE has focused on economic diversification that depends on regional stability. Turkey navigates complex relationships with both Washington and its Middle Eastern neighbors, balancing NATO membership against regional realities. None of these countries wants to become a battlefield in an American-Iranian conflict, according to regional analysts. The Iranian warning forces them to consider whether hosting American forces creates vulnerabilities they had not fully calculated. The Iranian message included a specific demand, according to the Reuters report. Tehran is asking regional countries to prevent Washington from attacking Iran, essentially telling its neighbors they have influence with the American government and should use it. Tehran has told regional countries from Saudi Arabia and UAE to Turkey that U.S. bases in those countries will be attacked if the U.S. targets Iran, the official told Reuters. The official continued, asking these countries to prevent Washington from attacking Iran. This represents diplomatic pressure designed to create division between America and its regional partners, analysts suggest. By making regional countries potentially responsible for preventing American action or bearing consequences if they fail, Iran is attempting to shift calculations in capitals from Riyadh to Ankara. Whether this approach will succeed remains to be seen. But the message has been delivered, according to the Reuters report, and regional capitals are now considering their responses with new urgency. The warnings appear to be having practical effects. Diplomats say some personnel were advised to leave the U.S. military's Udeid Air Base in Qatar, according to reports, one of the most significant American military installations in the Middle East. Udeid serves as a hub for U.S. operations across the region, with thousands of American personnel stationed there. Aircraft operating from the base can reach targets throughout the Persian Gulf and beyond. Udeid is within Iran's regional strike range, analysts say, making it a potential target if conflict erupts. Officials describe the personnel movement as a precautionary posture change, according to reports, emphasizing it was not a full evacuation. There were no immediate signs of large-scale troop movements, but the precaution itself is notable. It suggests American military planners may be taking Iranian warnings seriously, that contingency planning could be underway, and that the possibility of conflict is being treated as real rather than rhetorical, according to analysts. The crisis has been shaped significantly by President Trump's public statements. In recent interviews, Trump has warned of action against Iran with language that is direct and stark, though the specific nature of any potential American response remains unspecified. In a TV interview, Trump warned of very strong action if protesters are executed, but offered no details. We will take very strong action. If they do such a thing, we will take very strong action, Trump said when asked about reports that Iranian authorities might hang demonstrators. Trump said the U.S. would take very strong action if hangings happen, without saying what that means, leaving ambiguity that may be intentional. The warning is clear in its threshold, but unclear in its consequences, creating uncertainty for all parties trying to calculate their next moves. Whether Iran will test that line remains a central question for analysts. The gap between American rhetoric and potential action creates space for miscalculation on all sides. Trump's public statements to Iranian protesters have been encouraging but vague. Help is on the way, he declared. A statement broadcast widely and interpreted as a promise of American support for those challenging the Iranian government. But what does help mean? When pressed, Trump offered multiple interpretations. There's a lot of help on the way and in different forms, including economic help from our standpoint and not going to help Iran very much, he said, suggesting economic pressure rather than direct support for protesters. Sanctions, tariffs on countries doing business with Iran, diplomatic isolation, these are forms of help that pressure the government rather than directly aid those in the streets. But there are also military dimensions to consider, analysts suggest, given Trump's other statements. When asked whether strikes would protect protesters, Trump was non-committal. Well, you never know, do you? You never know. So far, my track record's been excellent, but you never know. The ambiguity may be intentional, keeping Iran guessing while preserving flexibility. Iran is not waiting passively, according to state media reports. Iran's Revolutionary Guards, via state media, said they are at full battle readiness and have increased missile stockpiles. Statements that come as tensions reach their highest point since the June 2025 conflict. During that conflict, international reporting described Israeli strikes on targets in Iran and U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear sites, though scope and impacts remain disputed. But Iran's military emerged with lessons learned, according to analysts, vulnerabilities identified, defenses adjusted, capabilities potentially enhanced. An Iranian official described Israel as an existential threat and said Tehran is preparing accordingly. We have taken this threat completely seriously, and we are in fact preparing ourselves commensurate with the magnitude and scale of this very threat, the official said. The language is significant, analysts note. Iran views the current situation as existential, not merely a policy challenge, but a threat to the regime's survival. It is preparing accordingly. American military movements are being closely watched. Reports indicate some U.S. personnel are being moved from Middle East bases, movements that could indicate several things, analysts suggest. Force protection measures to reduce vulnerability to potential Iranian retaliation would be one explanation. Repositioning for possible operations would be another. Reducing potential targets represents a third possibility. Some online trackers have claimed unusual activity around Udeid Air Base, but Reuters has not confirmed those specifics. The timing is notable. As threats escalate, forces appear to be moving in ways that suggest preparation for various scenarios. The situation inside Iran remains difficult to assess. A U.S.-based rights group says more than 2,600 people may have been killed in recent days, significant, if accurate, representing one of the deadliest crackdowns in recent memory. But the number has not been independently verified. Information from inside Iran remains limited due to widespread internet disruptions. Sources face enormous risks documenting events, communication is restricted, and verification is nearly impossible under current conditions. What can be said is that multiple sources report significant casualties, and the scale appears substantial. But precise figures remain uncertain, leaving the international community to assess the crisis with incomplete information. The information environment is itself a battleground. Iranian authorities have severely restricted internet access, according to monitoring groups, throttling mobile networks, limiting landlines, and blocking international websites. The blackout serves multiple purposes for the government, analysts observe. It prevents protesters from coordinating. It prevents documentation from reaching the outside world. It allows government narrative control through state media. Starlink satellite terminals have provided some connectivity, according to reports. Protesters have used the satellite service to upload videos and communicate with contacts abroad, bypassing infrastructure the government controls. But authorities are responding to the Starlink challenge. The Wall Street Journal reports authorities have searched for and confiscated Starlink dishes and intensified disruption efforts. It's electronic warfare, says Amir Rashidi of the Meon Group, a U.S.-based nonprofit tracking censorship. The interference is most severe in areas with protest activity, according to digital rights experts. Disruptions increase at night when demonstrations reportedly occur in larger numbers, suggesting targeted efforts to prevent documentation. Iran's government has consistently blamed external forces for the unrest, with the United States and Israel accused of orchestrating protests, according to Iranian officials. What began as economic grievances, in the government's telling, was exploited and transformed. An Iranian official described the government's view. These incidents, which were in fact the exploitation of a normal professional protest in their country, turned into a riot and then into an armed terrorist operation. They showed that they had completely planned it. The framing is deliberate, analysts observe. By characterizing opposition as terrorism, the government justifies severe responses. By attributing organization of foreign powers, the government denies legitimacy to domestic grievances. The characterization of protesters as terrorists has specific implications. Terrorists can be prosecuted without protections afforded to ordinary citizens. They can be tried in security courts. They can be executed under laws designed for serious state threats. The framing prepares ground for harsh measures while shaping international perception, analysts suggest. Iran's government is telling the world, we are not suppressing peaceful protest. We are defending against armed terrorism organized by foreign enemies. The evidence for this characterization has not been independently verified. Foreign Minister Arakchi has claimed evidence exists, audio recordings, confessions, seized money, but none has been made public. Diplomatic channels between Tehran and Washington have narrowed significantly. Iranian officials say direct contacts have now been suspended, removing mechanisms typically used to prevent miscalculation. Even during extreme tension, some communication has typically continued through back channels or intermediaries. These channels clarify intentions and create de-escalation opportunities. If those channels are truly closed, risks increase, analysts warn. Misunderstandings become more likely. Accidental escalation becomes more possible. Room for diplomatic solutions shrinks precisely when most needed. Trump announced, all meetings with Iranian officials are canceled until the senseless killing of protesters stops. The suspension appears mutual, with neither side currently talking through official channels. Israel is watching closely. Israeli officials say Prime Minister Netanyahu's security cabinet has been briefed on two possibilities: U.S. intervention in Iran and political instability inside Iran. Both scenarios have significant implications. A weakened Iran could reduce threats from Iranian-aligned forces, but conflict could trigger retaliation against Israel. Israeli territory was targeted during the June 2025 conflict. Netanyahu has long advocated pressure on Iran, describing it as an existential threat. Now, those warnings are discussed in context of potential American action. Iran is conducting its own diplomatic campaign, according to Iranian officials. Tehran says it is in contact with Qatar, the UAE, and Turkey, with conversations serving multiple purposes. The discussions warn these countries about consequences of enabling American attacks, seek to isolate the United States from regional partners, and project diplomatic engagement alongside military preparation, analysts suggest. The message is consistent. Iran will defend sovereignty against foreign interference, and countries facilitating interference may face consequences. The diplomacy is coercive, but reflects Iran's strategic position. Iran's position has been stated clearly. Sovereignty will be defended, foreign interference resisted, and the government will not capitulate to external pressure. This reflects the Islamic Republic's founding ideology. Resistance to foreign domination, particularly American and Israeli, is central to the regime's identity. Backing down would undermine legitimacy, signal weakness, and encourage further pressure. From Tehran's perspective, resistance is an existential requirement, according to analysts. The government believes it must demonstrate resolve or face the fate of governments that bent to American demands. Iranian officials have framed current events as continuation of the June 2025 conflict. These series of events will continue the 12-day war, an official stated, suggesting protests are another front in ongoing conflict rather than organic grievances. But with the efforts and determination of our security, police, and military forces, they were suppressed, the official continued. Many of those who fired upon our armed forces were punished. The language of war is deliberate, analysts observe. It justifies wartime measures, frames opposition as enemy action, and positions the government as defending the nation. Iran does not stand alone. Russia has issued its own warning, with Moscow saying U.S. strike threats are categorically unacceptable, according to the Russian Foreign Ministry. Those who plan to use externally inspired unrest as a pretext for repeating the aggression against Iran committed in June 2025 must be aware of the disastrous consequences of such actions for the situation in the Middle East and global international security, the statement said. Russia is telling Washington that military action against Iran would destabilize the region and have global consequences. Whether Russia would take concrete action remains unclear. The Venezuela precedent suggests limits to Russian intervention. China has joined Russia in opposing American pressure. We have always opposed interference in other countries' internal affairs, China's foreign ministry stated. We consistently advocate that the sovereignty and security of all nations should be fully protected by international law. China's position reflects both principles and interests. Trade data indicates China buys over 80% of Iran's shipped crude, giving Beijing direct interest in Iranian stability. Trump's tariff on countries doing business with Iran directly targets China, linking the Iran crisis to broader U.S.-China tensions. Together, Russia and China present a diplomatic front opposing American intervention. The United States has intensified economic pressure alongside warnings. Trump announced new tariffs on countries doing business with Iran, designed to isolate Iran by forcing third countries to choose between Iranian trade and American market access. For most countries, the calculation favors the United States. American markets are larger, financial systems more important. But China represents the exception, continuing Iranian oil purchases despite sanctions. The economic campaign continues with Iranian currency under pressure and inflation persisting. Ordinary Iranians bear the costs. Whether this achieves American objectives remains debated. The stakes extend across the region. American installations dot the Middle East: Al Udeid in Qatar, Al Dhafra in the UAE, Incirlik in Turkey, facilities in Saudi Arabia, naval presence in Bahrain, forces in Iraq, Syria, Jordan. Each could represent potential targets. Iran's missile and drone capabilities can reach most of them. During June 2025, Iran said it targeted American positions. Specific results were disputed, but claimed capability was demonstrated. A new conflict could see attacks on American facilities, host countries affected, regional economies disrupted, energy infrastructure targeted. This is the calculation Tehran presents to regional governments. Iran's claimed capabilities deserve consideration. Tehran has invested decades in asymmetric capabilities: missiles, drones, naval forces, and regional networks. These are designed for deterrence, and if that fails, imposing costs on adversaries. Iran cannot win conventional war against the United States. American superiority is overwhelming. But Iran claims it can make conflict costly. It says it can strike bases, target infrastructure, and activate regional forces. This is the calculation behind Iran's warnings: attack us, and we will respond. Multiple paths to escalation exist: American action in response to executions, incidents involving American forces, Iranian preemption, Israeli action, or miscalculation by any party. Each could lead to unintended outcomes. History is filled with escalations spiraling beyond control, wars begun with limited objectives becoming regional conflagrations. The current situation contains multiple trigger points. Executions could cross Trump's threshold. American movements could trigger Iranian preemption. Retaliation could provoke escalation. The margin for error is shrinking. The coming days may prove decisive. Trump has stated thresholds: very strong action if executions occur, but the nature remains unspecified. Well, I can't tell you that. I know exactly what it would be. We have to make a decision, certainly, but I can't be telling you, Trump said. The ambiguity may be intentional, keeping adversaries guessing while preserving flexibility, but it creates uncertainty about what the United States will do, what Iran will do in response, and what regional countries will do if caught between. Regional governments face difficult choices. They have received Iran's warning and understand potential risks, but they depend on American security partnerships built over decades. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Turkey. These relationships cannot be easily abandoned, but potential risks of Iranian retaliation cannot be ignored. Regional capitals are likely seeking to avoid forced choices, encouraging restraint in Washington while maintaining dialogue with Tehran. The ideal outcome is de-escalation. Conflict would not serve their interests. Lost in geopolitical calculations are ordinary Iranians. Those who protested faced economic grievances, currency collapse, inflation, declining living standards. Their protests expressed genuine hardship. Now they face a government characterizing them as terrorists, security forces reportedly killing many, an information blackout isolating them, and possibility their protests become factors in foreign calculations. Any external action might not help them. It might worsen their situation. Previous American interventions have not consistently produced positive outcomes for civilian populations. Iraq, Libya, Syria, each offers cautionary lessons. Multiple narratives compete for interpretation. The American narrative: Iranians rising against oppression with U.S. supporting aspirations. The Iranian narrative: foreign enemies orchestrating terrorism while security forces defend the nation. The Russian narrative: external interference unacceptable. American action would have disastrous consequences. The Chinese narrative: sovereignty must be respected, opposing American unilateralism. Each framing contains elements that may be accurate. The truth likely contains elements from multiple perspectives. The Middle East stands on edge. A senior Iranian official told Reuters Tehran warned of potential strikes on American bases if attacked. The United States warned of very strong action if executions occur. Russia warned of disastrous consequences. China condemned interference. Regional governments are caught between competing pressures. Protesters face security forces. Information is restricted. Diplomatic channels are narrowing. Military preparations continue. The trajectory could lead toward escalation or de-escalation, conflict or negotiation. The answers depend on decisions not yet made by leaders in Washington, Tehran, and capitals across the region. For Iran, government survival may be at issue. For the United States, credibility and regional influence are on the line. For regional countries, security and stability hang in balance. For ordinary people, lives and livelihoods are at risk. The world watches as the crisis continues. Warnings have been issued, thresholds stated, preparations underway. The question is whether wisdom will prevail over escalation, whether communication will overcome confrontation. The coming days will provide answers. The region and the world will live with the consequences.